They are a diverse group of superheroes. God, I love us.
At 77, Steven Tyler's name still sends shivers down the spine of anyone who grew up with Aerosmith blastin' G on the radio. But behind the flamboyant stage costumes, wild scarves, and piercing screams, lies a man whose love for music goes far deeper than fame and superstardom. In a recent, rare interview, Tyler opened up about the 7 bands that shaped his life, revealing influences that fans had speculated about for decades, but never truly knew until now. Tyler began by reflecting on his early years in New York and Boston, where he first discovered the power of music. It wasn't Aerosmith yet, it was the raw sounds of bands that made him feel alive. Those first records, he said, voice tinged with that 77. Steven Tyler is more than just a rock legend. He is a survivor, a storyteller, and a man whose love for music has defined his entire life. For decades, fans have speculated about the bands that inspired him, the ones that fueled the fire behind Aerosmith's unmistakable sound. And now, at an age when most legends look back quietly, Tyler has finally revealed the 7 bands that shaped his life, his career, and the very core of his musical soul. He started at the beginning long before Aerosmith became a household name. Tyler recalls the streets of Yonkers and New York in the 1960s, when vinyl records spun endlessly on turntables, and every riff, every drumbeat, every soulful note seemed to vibrate through his very being. I remember the first time I heard that guitar scream, he says, eyes distant. It felt like it was speaking to me, telling me to find my own voice. That's when I knew I was hooked. Those early experiences weren't just casual listening, they were education. Tyler credits some of these bands with teaching him the fundamentals of rhythm, melody, and stage presence long before he even touched a microphone. He explains how the raw energy of certain groups inspired him to experiment with his voice, to push it to extremes, and to embrace the theatricality that would later define Aerosmith's shows. Each band, he says, left a mark, like footprints across his journey as a musician. When asked about the list of 7, Tyler hesitated for a moment, the kind of pause that comes with decades of reflection. It's hard to narrow it down, he admitted, because these bands, they weren't just music. They were mentors. They were teachers. They were companions in every struggle I ever had. Indeed, he revealed that some of these bands were hidden gems, known only to die-hard fans, while others were legendary giants that shaped the entire rock landscape. But the list isn't just about admiration, it's deeply personal. Tyler described how certain albums from these bands carried him through tumultuous times, late nights in empty apartments, the anxiety of early fame, battles with addiction, and the loneliness that sometimes accompanies superstardom. There were nights when I felt completely alone, he confesses, and then I'd put on a record, and suddenly I wasn't alone. These songs, they saved me. He spoke passionately about one particular band whose influence he calls life-changing. Not only did their music push him creatively, but it also helped him survive the emotional toll of touring and recording for decades. They reminded me that chaos could be beautiful, that energy could be harnessed into something meaningful, he explained. Without them, I don't think Aerosmith would sound the way it does. Tyler also revealed that sharing this list is a form of closure. For years, he kept his influences private, partly out of humility, partly out of fear of being misunderstood. Now, at 77, he feels free to honor the bands that shaped him without judgment or expectation. He wants fans to understand that the music behind the music is just as important as the hits they hear on stage. By the end of the conversation, it was clear that Tyler's 7 favorite bands weren't just names on a list. They were the soundtrack of his life. Each one represents a chapter, a period of growth, struggle, inspiration, or triumph. They show fans that behind the wild stage antics, the screaming vocals, and the rock star persona, there's a man deeply committed to his craft, profoundly moved by the power of music, and endlessly grateful to those who inspired him, and for fans who followed him for decades. This list finally offers insight into the roots of Aerosmith's iconic sound, the bands that ignited a fire so strong it still burns at 77. Tyler's revelation is more than nostalgia. It is a testament to the enduring power of music, the bonds it creates, and the way it shapes even the most legendary lives. After revealing the bands that shaped him, Steven Tyler leaned back and reflected on what each one truly meant to him, not just as music, but as a lifeline through decades of chaos, fame, and self-discovery. Tyler, who has lived the extremes of rock and roll, shared that these 7 bands were far more than influences, they were companions. Through his most challenging moments most fans could never imagine, he began with the band that first ignited his obsession with sound. Tyler explained that their raw energy, combined with emotional depth, taught him the importance of authenticity in music. When you hear someone pour their soul into every note, he said, you realize that music isn't just entertainment, it's survival. That early experience inspired him to find his own voice, to scream, wail, and whisper through the highs and lows of Aerosmith's career. Each subsequent band on his list represented a turning point. One introduced him to harmonies and rhythms that would become hallmarks of Aerosmith's sound. Another instilled a fearless sense of showmanship, how to own a stage, capture an audience, and make every performance unforgettable. And yet another band, relatively unknown to mainstream fans, taught him subtlety, how to convey emotion without theatrics, how to let a melody speak before the lyrics even land. Tyler stressed that without these lessons, his music might have been loud but empty. Instead, it resonated deeply with generations. But Tyler didn't just discuss musical techniques. He opened up about the emotional shelter these bands provided. There were years when fame and touring took a personal toll, when the nights were long, hotel rooms cold, and loneliness suffocating. In those moments, spinning a record from one of these 7 bands reminded him of who he was before the chaos, grounding him in a sense of purpose and identity. Some nights, he admitted, their music was the only thing that kept me from falling apart. Tyler also revealed that these bands shaped not just Aerosmith's sound, but his approach to life. The determination, creativity, and resilience he observed in their music became a template for surviving the highs and lows of fame, addiction, and personal struggles. He emphasized that influence isn't imitation, it's absorption, taking the lessons, the passion, and the spirit of others and band, he explained, taught him the importance of presence, the ability to captivate an audience without relying on theatrics alone. Another emphasized storytelling through lyrics, showing him how music could communicate emotion and narrative in ways no words could fully capture. Tyler stressed that these lessons weren't learned in school or through formal training. They were absorbed through listening, watching, and feeling. But perhaps the most moving revelation came when Tyler discussed how these bands influenced his resilience. In a career marked by highs and lows, including public scrutiny, addiction battles, and personal struggles, he credited their music with giving him strength. It wasn't just about notes or rhythms, he said. It was about spirit, attitude, and courage. They showed me that even when life hits hard, music can lift you up. Tyler also reflected on how the band's relationships with each other served as informal mentorships. Watching their dynamics, their collaborations, and even their conflicts taught him how to navigate partnerships in his own band. Aerosmith wouldn't exist the way it does if I hadn't learned from them, he admitted. They showed me that music is as much about loyalty, trust, and connection as it is about talent. Fans listening closely could sense Tyler's deep gratitude. He wasn't simply naming bands for the sake of nostalgia, he was honoring the forces that shaped his life. Each band, each album, each note had contributed to his identity, not just as a musician, but as a human being navigating a challenging, unpredictable, and often unforgiving world. Tyler also touched on the emotional significance of the music itself. Certain songs transported him back to moments of pure joy, heartbreak, or inspiration. It's funny, he said, smiling softly, how a riff can bring back memories you didn't even know were there. Music is magic that way. And for someone whose life has been defined by performing magic on stage, the irony was not lost on him. The music that inspired him became the music he created, influencing millions across generations. That is part 3 of this story draws to a close. It's clear that Steven Tyler's list of 7 favorite bands is much more than a ranking. It's a testament to resilience, passion, and the enduring power of music. These bands didn't just shape his sound, They shaped his heart, mind, and soul. They carried him through the chaos of fame, taught him lessons he couldn't learn anywhere else, and inspired him to create the music that would define a generation. At 77, Steven Tyler is finally sharing not just his favorites, but his truth, that music, above all else, is life, survival, and connection, and that every note he's ever sung owes a debt to the 7 bands that made him who he is today. As the conversation with Steven Tyler reached its final moments, it became clear that this wasn't just about music, it was about legacy, gratitude, and reflection. At 77, Tyler has seen the rise and fall of trends, endured the highs and lows of fame, and lived through experiences that few could ever imagine. Naming his 7 favorite bands was more than a nostalgic exercise. It was a way to honor the forces that shaped him, both as an artist and as a human being. Tyler began the chapter by recounting the profound influence these bands had on his creativity. "Every single one taught me something unique," he said. "Some taught me how to scream. Some taught me how to whisper. Some taught me that even chaos can be beautiful, with a smile." He explained that he still revisits their music, not just for inspiration, but to reconnect with the raw emotions that fueled his early years. Listening to these bands today is a way for Tyler to remember the young man who fell in love with music in the first place, the one who dreamed of stages, crowds, and unrestrained expression. He also reflected on the personal lessons he drew from these musical heroes. One band, he explained, instilled the importance of collaboration and trust, showing him that a group's unity could be as vital as talent. Another band demonstrated resilience, surviving setbacks and failures with grace and determination, inspiring Tyler to navigate the chaos of touring, addiction, and the pressures of fame. "They showed me that life, like music, has rhythms, ups and downs, crescendos and pauses, and surviving the lows makes the highs meaningful," he said. Tyler admitted that revisiting these bands in recent years had sparked a sense of humility and gratitude. "When you've lived as long as I have, you realize it's not about being the loudest or the flashiest," he reflected. "It's about honoring the music that taught you, inspired you, and carried you through everything." For him, these 7 bands were more than influences, they were mentors, companions, and lifelines. He also shared the emotional connection he still feels with the music of his youth. Even after decades on stage performing for millions, Tyler said that some nights he still listens to their records alone, letting the music transport him back to moments of pure awe and inspiration. It reminds him of why he became a musician in the first place: to feel, to express, and to connect. "These bands were the first to make me understand that music could change a life," he said. "And it changed mine every single day." Finally, Tyler spoke about the broader message he hopes fans take from his list. "It's not just a catalog of favorites, it's a reminder of the power of influence, the importance of mentorship, and the way music shapes our hearts, minds, and souls." He hopes that by sharing these 7 bands, he can inspire younger generations to dig deeper, listen harder, and recognize that even legends are products of those who came before them. "As much as I love Aerosmith," he said, his voice softening, "I am forever grateful to the bands that taught me how to sing, how to perform, and how to survive. They are the reason I am still here, still passionate, still in love with music at 77. In that moment, it became clear Steven Tyler's 7 favorite bands are not just a reflection of musical taste. They are a testament to survival, inspiration, and the enduring magic of music. At 77, he isn't just naming bands, he's sharing the soundtrack of a life fully lived, a journey defined by creativity, perseverance, and a love for the art that never fades. For fans, this revelation is more than nostalgia. It's a reminder that music shapes us all, and that even legends like Steven Tyler are, at their core, students of the songs that moved them most. And as the interview ended, one thing was certain: these 7 bands will forever echo in the heart of a rock icon who continues to inspire generations.